Good for you, Uncle Mark. I just grew up to follow Uncle Mark. He's so beautiful down there.
I'm kidding.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this Monday afternoon. My name is Kristen Smithson. I'm the Assistant Director of Orientation, and today we have a real treat for you all. We have 4 current JU students who are here for you to ask all of your questions to. And so they've lived the experience, they've been there. A couple of our students are going into their senior year, and we've got a few juniors as well. And so they've really lived the JU experience. They're here to share some of that with you. So now is your time. You have them full focus for the next 45 minutes or so to ask them all of your questions. We do ask that you go ahead and keep yourself on mute, and if you have questions, to put them in the chat, and we'll be monitoring that chat throughout and trying to get those questions answered as best as we can, or referring you to the proper resources if we don't have those answers. So I'll go ahead and let them introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about themselves. So Joel, if you can kick us off.
Hi, my name's Joel. I'm a junior here at Jacksonville University. And I'm pretty involved in Campus Connection here, which is it's off-campus outreach, but they do come on campus for a lot of things if fellowship is what you're interested in.
Hi everyone, I'm Haley. I'm from Miami, Florida. I'm currently a senior, but I just signed up for the 4+1 program for kinesiology to get my master's in 1 year. I am the president of the women's club soccer team, as well as the president of the vegan club on campus. And I chose JU because originally I'm from Miami, so I didn't want to go too far from home, and I didn't want to be too close as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Megan. I'm a current junior here at JU. I'm a psychology major. I'm originally from Orlando, Florida, so I chose JU because it's not too far from home, and I really like the small class sizes, and everyone on campus just like made it feel like family whenever I stepped on here. So yeah.
And hi everyone, my name's Abrian Nelson. I'm a current senior here at JU. I was born in Germany, but I'm from a military family, so my family lives all over, and I chose JU because I knew I really wanted to be in Florida, and like the small class sizes were like a really big thing for me.
Awesome, thanks everyone. So I'll get us started with a couple of questions, but for family members who are just joining us, feel free to stick your questions in the chat, and we will ask our student panelists those questions as we go. So thinking about moving in a couple of weeks away, thinking back to your first time moving onto campus, what is maybe one thing you wish you had with you, or one thing you wish you had left at home after you got settled into your room for a couple weeks?
One thing that I wish that I left at home would have definitely been like things that like extra extra clothes. Like it would definitely be like the extra winter clothes and big jackets, just because like it was better to have it at home, and then like when I go back on break, do like a clothes switch out. So I think that was very helpful.
I saw some nods and some agreement. Anything else y'all wish you had brought with you, or something you left at home?
Oh, sorry, Joel, were you gonna go?
Go.
Okay, so it's not that like the rooms are like hot or anything, but I just personally like to have like a little fan with me. So if your students like to sleep like really cold or something, I would definitely recommend investing in like a little fan or something.
I was going to say that I think it's really good that if possible, when your students can coordinate with whoever they're going to be living with in the dorms or in the residence halls, because if one student brings a microwave, then you probably don't need 2 microwaves in the room. So I think it's really good to coordinate between the roommates about who brings what.
Awesome. Thank you all for sharing that. So as we all know, first semester at school is a big transition for students, but it's also a big transition for, the family members and navigating those relationships as well. Is there anything that you wish your family members did different in that first semester as you were transitioning to life at JU?
So as my first year, I did go home a lot. I probably went home maybe three times, and it's a 5-hour drive for me, but I did wish that sometimes my family would come up and visit me as well, so I wouldn't have to do that drive, and they could hang out with me in Jacksonville. If that's possible for your family to do, I would definitely suggest doing that.
I think for me personally, my parents were really great. But I think that me just calling them whenever I could was honestly something that kept us really connected, because like it's really hard to coordinate like a phone call, and you just like don't know what your schedule is gonna throw at you sometimes. So just like allowing your student to just call you whenever they're free, because I'm sure they're gonna call you a lot. Because I called my parents a lot like my first year, just because I was like freaking out about everything and just always wanted to share everything with them. So I think that's definitely something to keep in mind.
So kind of touching on some of those communication pieces, how would you say your communication with your family changed when you left for college? What did you find worked for you? Did you make adjustments as you went? But what did that first semester look like as you were figuring things out?
For me, my family, like I come from like a family of five kids, and then my mom and dad. So it's a pretty big family, so we're really close. One thing that we did like FaceTime calls. Like it just kind of became like a routine of like every Sunday, maybe every other Sunday, like just like a check-in call. Nothing like strict or anything like that, but just like casual, just catching up.
Kind of bounce off what Abraham said. My freshman year, I just kind of let my parents know my like school schedule, like what I did like pretty much every day. Because with like athletics and classes, my days were pretty like set in stone. So they knew like what times I was free if they needed to call me. But I always made a point at least once or twice a week just to call them, and just kind of like, even if it's just like, hey, I did this today kind of thing, because your parents miss you. Whether or not they admit it, they miss you. So it's good to reach out to them.
Haley or Megan, what about you two? Did either of you have your family members wishing you were calling more than you did?
My parents didn't really like me and my parents didn't really talk as much, but it would be my grandparents that would want to talk to me and text me and call me every day, and I did like talk to them, and sometimes I would text because I'll be in classes or eating with friends. So I would text them when I couldn't talk, and then when I could talk, I would call them.
Yeah, for me, it was really just like my mom wasn't so much like calling me all the time, and my dad would constantly call me. So I kind of had to definitely like send him a message and be like, hey, this is my schedule for the week. Like, I can't talk like while I'm in class. So I definitely think it's just like calling whenever I can. And honestly, like my mom works from home, so sometimes I just call her whenever. I mean, so it really just is like kind of communicating when you can like talk to your kid kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know about you all, but I remember I used to call my mom's phone by default. Just that's whose phone number I called first. And if my dad wasn't on the line with her, he would get a little jealous. So I had to make sure they were both on the phone call giving them updates, so they got the same information. I think Haley, you touched on this in a little bit. How often did you all visit home or see your family in the first year at JU?
For me, I didn't go home as much just because my parents would come to my home games and stuff. So I was able to see them pretty much if not every other weekend for the most part. But Haley's 5 hours away. I'm like three hours away. But so it's like far enough to where I'm like not on top of home, but it's close enough. Like if there was something that happened where I needed to go home, I could go home. But I really didn't go home that often.
My parents, at the time they were stationed, in Maryland. So that's like a 12-hour drive and I believe like a 4-hour flight. So I couldn't just go home casually on the weekends. But that kind of helped me like just keep myself busy and like get more involved on campus and like fill in those empty like spaces of time that I have with like whether it's like meeting new people or joining a club or something. Um, and that like really kept my mind off of like getting like too homesick.
Bouncing off of what Abrian said, I definitely think I didn't visit home too much because I got involved pretty quickly once I came to JU. So it was like every weekend I like had stuff going on. So I honestly think like I really was just going like during breaks, and I think the breaks are long enough to where it's like you get to like soak up all that time while you're there. So I mean, I did go like a few weekends here and there, but it wasn't like I visited a whole lot.
Awesome. So as we kind of know, homesickness doesn't really know a distance. Like you can be living on campus and be 30 minutes from home and still feel homesick, or you can be like Abrian said, up in Maryland and not getting to see your family. What did you do when you had that first feeling of kind of missing home and missing life at home, even though you were a new student at JU and just a lot of different things going on? So how did you kind of manage that feeling of missing, you know, what life at home was like before you came to school?
I definitely had a lot of FaceTime calls. But like I just started to fill up with like meeting new people and like just like really like just diving in headfirst into like the new college experience. And like I'm a military kid, so I was like used to being the new kid. So like putting myself out there and like just talking to like the people that live right next door to me wasn't like too daunting. And then from there, like you start getting involved and like there's stuff to do every weekend and then you're okay. You realize you're okay.
I see some nods. Anyone else have anything to add to that?
Just bouncing off what Abrian said, I think that when you're feeling homesick, it's just like finding something to be involved in on campus is really important. That is an outlet, like an outlet to meet new people and stuff when you're in college. Because I mean, you're going to live here for the next 4 or 5 years. I mean, so it's pretty much your new home for the next 4 or 5 years. So it's good to make sure you're involved in something, I would say.
Yeah. It seems like you all have a variety of involvement across campus in different areas. How did you get plugged into those involvement opportunities? And when did you decide was the right time for you to kind of take that step into involvement?
So for me, my freshman year, I wasn't really involved in many clubs and activities. I would usually just go to class, come back, take a nap for like 3 hours, and just hang out with friends. That was the most I was included in. And then probably towards the end of my sophomore year, I decided to finally make the vegan club on campus. And then junior year, I did the soccer club. And I just decided to do that because there is another men's soccer club, and the president of that team motivated me to make a soccer team for the girls. And then that's when everything kicked off for me. I started joining clubs, I started joining different activities, orientation, and you know, it takes time, but just find something that you enjoy. And if it's not there, you could always make it.
So for me, I'm involved in Greek life. So as soon as I went through recruitment and ran home, as we say, all of my sisters were involved in a bunch of different things on campus. And so I think that's really how I started to find out about different clubs and organizations that I could join. And they really just encouraged me to, you know, try new things. And you really can fit a lot more like involvement into your schedule than you think at first. That's really how I started to get plugged in with through Greek life.
I was a music theater major, or I still am, and I had rehearsals at night, and then like me just like spending like 3 hours in like the room with the same people Monday through Friday. You get to know them pretty well, and through that, like I was able to like make friends and like learn more about like what it is to be at JU.
So I see we've got some questions that are coming in the chat. So questions specifically about bringing dress clothes to campus with you. What has been your all's take, kind of like, did you bring things with you? Did you wear them? Did you not? Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
So I went to my freshman year, I believe I went to a seminar. So I had a white pants and a nice long sleeve shirt to go to that seminar. So I would just bring something, something, you don't need too many, maybe one or two dress items if you have an interview or presentation like Joel said, or a seminar that you want to go to.
Yeah, for me, I brought like brown and black shoes. And like if you, at least for guys, like you could do a white button-up shirt and like at least one tie and like some nice slacks and maybe khakis, and that will like, that can get you through just about any like more professional scenario.
Well, I say a lot of times professors will, part of the grade in presentations is like your attire, how you present yourself. So I think it's important to have not necessarily dress clothes, but like Haley said, something like presentable.
Yeah, and I know I've seen on campus if students are applying for jobs, like the employers don't expect them to come in suits or anything like that, but it is nice to see even just the khaki and polos is generally a step up from what you see students in on campus when they're wearing, you know, Nike shorts and flip-flops, which is totally fine for going to class day to day, but it is nice to be able to kind of up it just a little bit for some of those, if you're applying to be an orientation leader or going to meet like a potential on-campus employer or dressing up for a presentation. So I'd say for sure probably khakis, a polo, button-up shirt can get you through most things, but you can also kind of incorporate those items into your like casual daily wear as well. So good question. And then Joel, I think a question that's going to specifically be for you as a kinesiology major, what would you say the science classes were like your first year in the program?
I mean, your first like semester, first year, you're taking mostly your prerequisites for classes. Really the closest, like, I think science class you really have your first year as a kinesiology major is your anatomy and physiology. One, and there's you have to take two for as a kinesiology major. The first anatomy and physiology, depending on the professor you have, is probably going to like dictate the difficulty of the class. It's a lot of memorization. So I think that as long as you go to class, pay attention, and like apply yourself, then you'll pass it. Like it's not like hard work; it's just work to remember. I mean, then you have like your pre-kin classes, right, Haley, that you take. They're like half semester.
Yeah, so I'm also a kinesiology major, and my first year I did take chemistry. So you had to take chemistry to get into anatomy, I believe it was. And for me, chemistry was really a struggle for me. So I would definitely, if you're struggling in a class, there is free tutoring on campus, and I would definitely take advantage of that. And then also, like what Joel said, anatomy is a little difficult, but it is just memorization and just structures of the bones and the muscles and the ligaments and that kind of thing. And you just really need to apply yourself in those kind of classes. But kinesiology, I really enjoy that as my major.
Thank you all. So kind of talking about some of those difficult classes or just difficulties you face in general your first year. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe what one of those difficulties was and what resources did you use to kind of help get through that difficult time and kind of see it through the other end?
Yeah, like I said before, tutoring is really good way to help like with your classes. And then also some students are afraid to talk to their professors, but talking to your professors could probably be the number one thing you would want to do because they could help you and they see that you're trying. So as long as they see that you're trying and you're trying to pass the class, they will help you out. And they also have a lot of information for you and guidance.
So obviously, like Haley said, you know, like doing tutoring and stuff like that and talking to your professors, but too, a big thing, at least for me, that I've seen is just time management can honestly help you immensely with a class, like just knowing that you have to take a step back from other things and like really prioritizing a class. So I think that's a really important piece as well.
And for me, honestly, it just like took the experience of like not doing too well on that like very first test or that very first assignment to realize maybe I shouldn't like go hang out. Maybe I should like hit the books and like say no and like really prioritize. But like it just took me like being in the situation and like realizing that for myself. That was like the big thing for me.
They kind of bounce off what Abraham had said is just like, I think everyone is very different and you have to find what works for you. Some people prefer to go into tutors. Some people prefer going to professors. Like I'm someone that I feel like I don't really benefit from tutoring. Maybe it's just because I'm stubborn. I don't know. But like I benefit a lot more from like going to my professor in that class and like talking to them and like going to their office hours and stuff. Um, and yeah, just like knowing when to prioritize your time between hanging out with friends and doing your work. My first college exam, I got a 30 because I did not like take it seriously. But then after that, I was like, okay, it's time to get right.
So how long do you feel like it took you to really catch that stride where you found that balance between your involvement, sports teams, classes, friends? Like how long do you think it took you all to get to that kind of happy medium?
My first semester was rough between classes and emotions and all this other nonsense. So my first semester was rough, and then probably my second semester I started picking it up and moderately, and then my sophomore year I started like taking it more seriously and getting more into my classes.
Yeah, same for me. It definitely took me like a good semester of adjustment. It definitely was just like a lot all at once. So my first semester was pretty rough too. But it definitely is just about like if your student has a planner, like tell them to use their planner. And like I think that's something that's really helpful. So yeah, it probably took me about a semester. And then after that, I was like, okay, like I feel like I have the hang of this now.
For me, I really didn't feel like I had the hang of college until sophomore year. I'm gonna be honest. Like first semester was like the first year, I think I was more focused on like everything else but classes. Like classes were definitely like something I would, oddly enough, like I wouldn't give as much time as I should have. And it took me until like really sophomore year to like know what resources I had available to me to like get the best results. And like there was a lot of like trial and error. Like maybe this tutor doesn't work. Maybe I need to talk to this professor. But sophomore year for me.
To be completely honest, for me, it was 100% the opposite. I like my freshman year, I thought everything was going to be sweet from then on out. Because my freshman year was like I did well in my classes. Like I didn't really struggle, and I was always so busy. And then I got to that first like, which was Thanksgiving break my freshman year. I got to that first break, and I finally like stopped and like slowed down, and like everything kind of like hit me, and I was like, wow, I'm tired. And then my sophomore year, I probably slacked off more than I should have because I thought it was going to be easy again, and I was in more difficult classes. And ended up having to dig myself out of a hole, which I finished fine, but I shouldn't have had to do that.
Hey, I like the honesty. Family members, if you have any questions, feel free to stick them in the chat. We'll make sure to get those answered since you have 4 attentive current students right here ready to help you out. Kind of in the meantime, what was your experience like the first time you went home for like a long break? Because you know you're used to having your independence at school and kind of managing your own schedule, staying up however late you wanted. What was it like when you got home and you kind of have to readjust to maybe your family's expectations?
The first time I went home for like a long period of time would be the summer. Like I went home for Thanksgiving and Christmas break, but the longest period was summer. And it was a little bit of a weird adjustment for my parents and I, just like understanding the fact that like I'm still your kid, but I'm not a child anymore. And just like sitting down and having those like adult conversations of like I'm still living under their roof, like what they expect of me, what kind of freedoms and like responsibilities I need to like do. It was just like sitting down and having that conversation with them.
Hey, Brandon hit it on the nose.
Yeah. So did you all initiate that conversation or did your parents?
It was a little bit of both. Yeah, definitely.
After a little bit of butting heads maybe kind of led to that? Yeah. Okay. Joel, what about you?
I think it kind of naturally developed. I think there's probably a point in time where it was like 9:30 and I was like, hey, I'm gonna go see my friends. And they were like,
Yeah.
what?
They're getting ready for bed and you're heading out, yeah?
Yeah, they were like, so I think it kind of developed naturally. Not that I don't like being home. I do love being home. I love seeing my family and stuff. I've always been family oriented. But I just kind of made a home in Jacksonville now, and I've made connections and stuff. And this is my second year being on the orientation team and stuff. So like my first year, I literally went home for 5 days when school got out, and then I moved back up here because the orientation team gives you an opportunity for housing over the summer, and I have like work up here and stuff. So building those connections where I could like stay in Jacksonville if I wanted to was helpful to me.
Now, do you all remember the first time maybe when you were home during those visits and you referred to JU as being home? Did your family members have a reaction to that, and how did you kind of navigate that conversation and, JU becoming part of your new home?
My mom was a little salty. But like, it was like, like you just say, oh, I can't wait to like go home or something like that. Like just like casual, nothing too serious. But my mom will forever be the best cook. Without a doubt.
For me, oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
For me, I think my mom like understood because it's like I am starting my life here, so I mean, definitely like home is definitely where like my mom is, obviously, but I consider Jacksonville and JU like my home too. So I think that she was pretty understanding about it.
There's enough room in your heart for both of them, right? So we got a question in the chat about, there's going to be a lot of changes this upcoming semester just with like the climate of the world and how things are post-COVID or during COVID, some of those changes. How are y'all kind of anticipating the campus atmosphere will be? What are some things maybe you're looking forward to about coming back to campus too?
I'm looking forward to seeing all of the different change. I feel almost as if I'm like going to a new school again, just because everything that we've done in the past has to either be like reworked or rethought when it comes to like getting together. And like, I feel almost as if I'm going to like a new school. But overall, I feel very in the know as far as like we get text messages from the school. We have our JU email. They have like a web page regarding COVID-19. So like, I feel like the information is in abundance and I don't really feel in the dark.
I think for me, the school has done a very good job of making, like, as keeping us updated, like Abraham said, but just the necessary adjustments, I guess, so that we can have like a normal college experience as possible. Like they've encouraged us to be outside and have like all these outdoor seatings and stuff where you can like safely socialize and all that. And the CAF is making a bunch of adjustments to where making it like if you don't feel comfortable sitting there, you can have like the grab and go options and like the meal kits where you can cook like at home, like if you're in an apartment off campus, or even like in the residential halls, there's like kitchen areas where you can like cook if that's something that like the student is interested in. So I think that just the fact that they're making these adjustments to keep it as normalized as possible is really cool.
Haley, I know that you're one of the kind of student voices helping plan our week of welcome. What might some of those events look like where we can still make sure students are welcome on campus, getting to know each other, but also being safe and socially distanced?
Yeah, so during Week of Welcome, we hope to host a Netflix party. And what a Netflix party is, everyone will show up on their computer and we'll all watch a movie together from our safety of our own apartments or dorms, that kind of thing. And there'll be a chat box on the right-hand side so you can communicate with your fellow JU students. Then also we'll probably be doing a thing called Painting with a Twist. So we'll have a painter, a JU student painter, and we'll broadcast it either on Zoom or on live Instagram, and you'll be able to have materials to paint and just follow along, which is one of the things that we're going to be doing online as well. And then we're also going to be doing scavenger hunts where you can win prizes and many other activities that you can look forward to.
Awesome. And Haley, for the Netflix, you do have to have a Netflix account, but I guess if you don't personally have one, maybe your roommate will have one, and then the two of you can watch it together, right?
Yeah, exactly. And
just as long as
that would be the case, yeah.
Cool. So just as long as one person has one, they can cast it to the TV and everyone can watch it together.
Yes, correct.
Cool. Awesome. Let's see. Thanks for sharing that, Haley. I know we're looking forward to getting our Week of Welcome schedule up so new students can find out about those events. We will also be giving new students planners. So those are complimentary from the school, from the orientation office. And so we'll actually be going around to the different rooms and making sure students are set up with those planners. So I know one of our panelists mentioned that earlier about the importance of putting everything in that planner, especially the first week, kind of starting the semester off right. You can go through once you get your syllabus and literally like put everything in there for the entire term so you know what's coming up week to week. So if your student wants to buy their own, that's totally fine too, but we will also be giving them to those students. So, and then Pat, I see we have a question about convocation. There will not be a convocation this year, just because we wanted to make sure that everyone was able to keep proper distance, and that's a large campus event. So we went ahead and had to cancel that for this year, unfortunately. And then we have a question too that came in through the chat. What are some of your favorite things to do around Jacksonville? I don't think none of you are from Jacksonville, so what have been some of the cool areas or things that you've found to do in town?
So I love to eat and love to try different places. So there's a few places that I go to like religiously all the time with friends or by myself, pick up, take out, or that kind of thing, which are Food Dog, Curry Traders, Nacho Taco. Also, there's a Riverside Arts Market, which has food trucks, like there's produce, sometimes there's dogs, yoga events. I think some of that has changed due to COVID, but they still do activities there and to properly social distance. And then also the beach is also another place that I love to go to.
Just like Haley said, there is so much good food in Jacksonville, all honesty. Like, and there's like so many variety. Like if you like barbecue, you like Oriental food, you like anything. Like it's all like there's a place for all of it. For me, it's the beach though, because I grew up on the water. Like back home, I was on the water and stuff. So the beach makes me like think of home. I like being there. Yeah, and just food.
Yeah, and there's also a lot of local Jacksonville businesses, so support your local small businesses as well.
I personally have become a diehard Jaguars fan since moving to Jacksonville, and JU does a really cool event where it's like the tickets are discounted for students. So even when they're not discounted, I've gone to a few games. So Jaguars games are definitely very fun. And then the beach as well. And there's a really nice shopping center like 15 minutes from campus called Town Center. And it has literally like everything you could ever need. So I love doing all that stuff.
So we had a question come in the chat talking about transportation to the beach. I guess we can kind of just expand this in general to transportation around Jacksonville. How do you all get to places around town? And if you maybe have a car, obviously that's good, but if you don't have a car, or if you have friends who don't have cars, like how have they managed kind of navigating town?
Usually there used to be, I think there still is one, don't quote me on that, but there is a shuttle, and I just looked it up actually, and it usually goes to Walmart, St. John's Town Center, and the beach. So if they're still doing that, there would be transportation to the beach, and I believe it's on Saturdays.
As far as transportation for me, my first year, I had a car, but like it wouldn't turn it wouldn't turn on, so I didn't really have a car. Um, but like if I ever needed to go anywhere, usually like Monday through Friday, um, I I was just like invested with the things that are going on campus and like homework, going to class. I didn't really go anywhere throughout the week, but on the weekends, like I would just like talk to a friend that did have a car.
Target trips are better with a friend, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was the friend with the car, so all my all my friends used to ask me like, "Can we go here? Can we go there?" And sometimes I don't suggest you do this, but sometimes I would just let them use my car, and then because I didn't want to drive everywhere. But that's definitely up to you and your parents to decide that. But I don't suggest you do that because there could be liability there. But I was the friend with the car.
So maybe if you do have a car, family members, it would be a good idea to have that conversation with your student about what some of those expectations are for where they're going with that car, who they're letting drive it, all of that, just so you avoid any kind of sticky situations. Awesome, thanks for that idea, Haley. So kind of getting ready to wrap up, can you all give us maybe one piece of advice that you would give to family members who have a new student starting this year at JU? What y'all think
I
on
would
that one?
say just be supportive and just be there to listen to the rants, any venting that they have. This is like, I mean, a really big change on like both ends, like for parents and for students. And they're going to be going through a lot of different emotions, a lot of different experiences, and sometimes they want to change their mind about, their major. Like I did that after my first semester. I changed my major, and it just like was really nice to have my mom be supportive about it and not like, why are you changing it? So I definitely think your students going to be going through a lot of different stuff. So just be there for them and just be open. Because I mean, they're 18, 19 years old. I mean, we're just kind of figuring it all out. So yeah, I definitely just think just being supportive and just letting them vent and just giving them encouraging words here and there.
I would say like when like your student goes off to like a university away from home, like I feel like now like in the beginning that was like the time where I was like gonna like spread my wings and like just like take on the world as just like myself. So like just giving them that like space to do that while still like being like a present and like supportive force in their life.
Pretty much what Adrian said. Yeah, it's like this is the part of your life where you're on your own, but you know what I mean, where you're trying to like navigate yourself through the world. Um, I think it's just really good to find that happy medium between being a supportive parent and like and listening to them and all that without being like on top of them. Because at the end of the day, he's kind of like I'm very much so on like let me make my own mistakes and learn from it kind of thing, which I think is how a lot of people function.
Yeah, I would go off of what everyone said. Everyone hit it on the nose as well. A big thing for me was I wasn't really a talker on the phone, so sometimes I would ask my parents if they could just text me or that kind of thing. So like let's say you call your student and they didn't answer, I would just send a text and then hopefully they'll respond back to you and then they can call you. And just like everyone said, just be supportive and be there for them. And my family, my parents were never really on top of me as much, so I don't really have the know of what it feels like. It's just usually my grandparents that were always like that. But I would also just tell them that I'm growing up. Like this is a part of, growing and that kind of thing. And being alone, I learned how to do my laundry. I learned how to cook more things than I did before. And it's just we're gonna be on our own soon.
Thank you all for sharing. I know we do have a session later this week too on transitions and letting go, that is for our family members, and kind of talking about what your student might be seeing on their end, but also what that transition is going to look like for family members, because it's not just your student that's going through it. And so the director of our counseling center talks about support for family members going through that process as well. But thank you for joining us a little bit on this Monday afternoon, and to our wonderful panelists for letting us pick their brains about their JU experience and how family members can kind of get to know a little bit about what their student might be going through during their first year at JU. You will be able to see Avery and Megan, Haley, and Joel during move-in. They'll be around campus wearing their orientation t-shirts. So feel free to stop them and say, hey, I remember you from the Zoom call if you see them around. And your students can also feel free to ask them questions, as they're transitioning to JU as well. But thank you all for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you in some of our future orientation sessions. Bye, everyone.